Blacksmith's mail-order bride shocks everyone. When Southern white woman defies all society. In 1868, Nevada, where the wounds of the Civil War still bleed and racial lines seem unbreakable. What happens when a formerly enslaved blacksmith places an advertisement for a wife, and the woman who answers is white Southern and running from her own shameful past? This is a story of courage, forbidden love, and two people willing to defy an entire society for the chance at happiness. Hit that like button and subscribe for this powerful tale that proves love knows no color, only character. The advertisement was simple, direct, and honest, just like the man who wrote it. Skilled blacksmith age 30 seeks wife for companionship and partnership. Have established business and home in Silver Ridge, Nevada. Can provide good life for right woman. All that matters is kind heart and willing spirit. Elijah Freeman. Elijah Freeman stood at his forge hammer, ringing against hot iron, each strike precise and purposeful. He'd built this smithy with his own hands, board by board, nail by nail, after walking away from a Georgia plantation 5 years ago with nothing but the clothes on his back and skills learned in bondage that would become his salvation and freedom. Silver Ridge wasn't paradise, but it was better than most places for a black man in 1868. The mining town needed skilled workers more than it needed to enforce the racial hierarchies of the East. Elijah's work was the best in 3 counties. Everyone knew it, even those who'd rather die than admit a black man's superiority in anything. The advertisement had been an act of desperate hope. The few black women in town were already married, and while Elijah had his pick of work, he didn't have his pick of companionship. Loneliness ate at him like rust on iron, slow but relentless. He'd sent the advertisement to newspapers in Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, hoping some freed woman might be looking for a new start in the West. He never imagined the response he'd receive. The letter had arrived 3 weeks ago, written in elegant script on fine paper that spoke of education and refinement. Mr. Freeman, your advertisement intrigues me. I too seek a new beginning, far from the shadows of the past. I am 26 years old, educated and unafraid of hard work. I have skills in letters and numbers, as well as domestic arts. I ask only for respect and honest partnership. If you are willing to correspond further, would be grateful. Sincerely, Miss Caroline Whitaker. Something about the letter's tone, formal yet warm, proper yet hinting at hidden depths, made Elijah write back immediately. They'd exchanged 3 letters, since each revealing more while still maintaining careful boundaries. She was from Charleston, had lost everything in the war, and needed to leave the South for reasons she didn't specify. He'd been honest about his race, his former enslavement, his current prosperity. Her response had been unexpected. Mr. Freeman, your honesty deserves equal honesty in return. The circumstances of one's birth should not determine the content of one's character. I have seen enough of what proper breeding produces to know that worth is measured in deeds, not bloodlines. I would be honored to accept your proposal if it still stands. Now she was arriving today, and Elijah wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. The morning stage would bring her to Silver Ridge in less than an hour. What kind of woman, especially a Southern white woman, would knowingly marry a black man in 1868? The answer walked off the stage at precisely noon, and Elijah's first thought was that there had been a mistake. The woman who emerged was undeniably, unmistakably white. Pale skin that had been carefully protected from the sun, honey blonde hair pinned in an elaborate style, gray eyes that swept the crowd with careful assessment. She wore a dark blue traveling fur that had seen better days but was meticulously maintained. Their eyes met across the dusty street, and Elijah saw the moment of recognition, followed by something he couldn't quite read. Determination meter both. He approached, slowly aware of the stares, the whispers already starting. Miss Whitaker, Mr. Freeman. Her voice was pure, South all magnolia and moonlight, but steady. I hope my arrival isn't unexpected. Your letters didn't mention. He stopped, unsure how to proceed. My race, she said it quietly but clearly. Would you have agreed to my coming if they had? Would you have come if I'd hidden mine? You didn't hide it. You were honest. I chose to come anyway. The crowd around them was growing, the whispers becoming mutters. Elijah saw Tom Bradley, one of the town councilmen, pushing through. Freeman, what the hell is this? Miss Whitaker is my intended bride, Elijah said calmly, though his heart was racing. Bradley's face went red. Like hell she is. Miss, I don't know what lies this man told you. He told me no lies. Caroline interrupted, her southern accent sharp as a blade. I knew exactly who and what Mr. Freeman is when I agreed to come. Then you're either crazy or Bradley bit off what he was going to say, but everyone could fill in the blank. Or what, sir? Carolyn's voice could have frozen July. Please do finish your thought. Bradley retreated, but the damage was done. The entire town would know within the hour. We should go, Elijah said quietly. My shop is… No. Carolyn straightened her spine. If we're to live here, they'll need to get used to seeing us. Hiding suggests shame, and I'll not be ashamed. They walked through town side by side, but not touching Caroline's head high, despite the stares and whispers. Elijah's shop and home sat at the edge of town, a well-built structure that spoke of prosperity and permanence. You built this, Caroline asked, genuine admiration in her voice. Every board and nail. It's impressive. Inside, away from prying eyes, they finally could speak freely. Why? Elijah asked simply. Carolyn removed her gloves slowly, and Elijah saw her hands. Not the soft, pampered hands of a Southern belle, but hands that had known work. My father owned the Whitaker plantation outside Charleston. 500 slaves cotton as far as the eye could see. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I grew up believing it was the natural order of things. Then the war came. She moved to the window, looking out at the Nevada mountains, so different from Carolina hills. Sherman's army came through in '65. The plantation burned. My parents died trying to save it. But before that, something else happened. Our house slaves, that's what we called them, as if giving them a special name made it better. They could have let us burn. Instead, they saved us, carried my mother out while the roof fell, went back for my father. Her voice cracked slightly. A man named Joseph, who my father had whipped the week before for looking him in the eye, carried him from the flames, died doing it. She turned to face Elijah. I spent 3 years trying to reconcile what I'd been taught with what I'd seen, trying to live in a South that wanted to pretend nothing had changed. Then I saw your advertisement, a chance to do something right maybe, to choose based on character rather than color. That's a heavy burden to put on a marriage, Elijah said carefully. Isn't every marriage a burden of some sort? At least this one starts with honesty. The whole town will turn against us, both of us. Then we'll have each other. The simplicity of it, the quiet courage made something shift in Elijah's chest. I have just one question, Caroline said. Can you forgive what my family did? Elijah was quiet for a long moment. I learned something working iron. You can't reshape metal without fire, without pressure, without hammer blows that seem like they'll destroy everything. But what comes out is stronger than what went in. He looked at her directly. You've been through the fire. Who you are now matters more than who you were. Then we understand each other. They were married 3 days later by the circuit judge, the only official willing to perform the ceremony. The witnesses were Elijah's only friend in town, an elderly Chinese man named Wei, who ran the laundry, and his wife. The rest of Silver Ridge made their displeasure known through absence and hostility. Their wedding night was awkward, two people navigating not just the usual uncertainties of new marriage, but the weight of history between their races. They lay side by side in the darkness, careful not to touch. Are you afraid? Elijah asked. Terrified, Caroline admitted. Not of you, of everything else, of not being strong enough for what's coming. We'll face it together, she agreed, and her hand found his across the space between them. The first test came quickly. Carolyn went to the general store the next morning for supplies. Mr. Henderson, the proprietor, looked through her as if she didn't exist. I'd like to purchase flour and salt, she said clearly. We don't serve your kind here, Henderson said. My kind. Race traders. Caroline felt the words like a physical blow but kept her composure. I see. And is there another store in Silver Ridge that might serve paying customers? Not for you, there ain't. She left with dignity intact, but nothing else. Elijah found her sitting in their kitchen, dry-eyed but shaking. I knew it would be hard, she said, but knowing and experiencing are different things. Wei's wife Mei Lin says they'll trade with us. The Chinese grocery has good supplies. Outcasts together then. There are worse things than being outside society's approval, such as being inside it and hating yourself. That night, someone threw a rock through their window. The note attached read, "Leave or burn." Elijah boarded up the window, his movements calm and methodical. "They want us afraid. But aren't you?" "I've been afraid my whole life. Fear and I are old friends, but I learned something as a slave. The worst thing they can do is kill you, and sometimes that's not the worst thing." That's a dark philosophy. It's a free philosophy. Once you accept death as a possibility, you can actually live. Caroline studied her husband. This man she barely knew but had tied her life to. "Teach me to be that brave." "You already are. You're here, aren't you?" The harassment continued. Elijah lost customers, though not all. His work was too good for everyone to boycott. Caroline was shunned completely except by Maylin, who became her only friend. "Why do you help us?" Caroline asked one day as they shared tea in Maylin's kitchen. "Because we know what it's like to be hated for how we look," Maylin replied. "And because you chose love over ease. That deserves respect." "Is it love, though, or just rebellion?" Maylin smiled. "Sometimes they're the same thing. Love is always rebellion against something. Loneliness, tradition, fear." Slowly, Caroline and Elijah built their own rhythm. She kept his books, having a head for figures he lacked. He taught her to tend the forge fire while he worked. In the evenings, she read to him. She'd brought a trunk of books salvaged from the plantation. "Why these?" he asked one night, looking at the volumes of Shakespeare Dickens' philosophy. "They were in the library. The only things that didn't burn. I thought maybe they survived for a reason." She began teaching him to read better. He knew basics but had never had formal education. In return, he taught her practical skills: cooking on a wood stove, mending gardening in desert soil. One evening, as she struggled with dinner, burning the cornbread, she broke down crying. "I'm useless," she sobbed. "I can't even cook a simple meal." Elijah pulled her into his arms the first time they had embraced outside of bed. "You're not useless. You're learning. There's a difference. I was raised to be an ornament, to play piano and speak French and manage slaves. None of that matters here. You're managing our accounts. You're standing up to a whole town's hatred. You're learning new things every day. That's not ornamental." She looked up at him, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time, not as a symbol of her rebellion or her redemption, but as a man, a good man who was patient with her failures and protective of her dignity. "Elijah," she said softly and kissed him. Not the careful, tentative kisses of their early marriage, but something real and hungry. That night they became truly husband and wife, and afterward, lying in his arms, Caroline felt something she hadn't experienced since before the war. Safe. But safety was an illusion in Silver Mudge. The violence escalated from the threats to action. Elijah's forge was vandalized, tools stolen, anvil damaged with sledgehammers. Sheriff Morrison did nothing. "Not my problem if you can't keep your property secure," he said with a smirk. Caroline wanted to rage, but Elijah just nodded and went back to work, repairing what he could, working twice as hard to make up for losses. Then Tom Bradley made a mistake. He came to the shop when Caroline was alone, Elijah having gone to the mine to shoe horses. "Mrs. Freeman," he said with false courtesy. "Or should I say, Miss Whitaker, I don't recognize marriages between humans and animals." "Get out." "I have a proposition. Leave him. Come to me. I'll set you up proper, give you a real home. You can be my woman instead of his whore." Carolyn grabbed the hot poker from the forge. "Get out," Bradley laughed. "You gonna burn me, woman?" "If necessary." "You've really fallen that low, threatening white men to protect your pet." He didn't finish. Caroline swung the poker, catching him across the shoulder. He screamed, stumbled back. "You burned me. You crazy bitch. You burned me. And I'll do worse if you come here again." Bradley left clutching his shoulder, but Caroline knew retribution would come. It came that night. 20 men with torches, led by Bradley, surrounded the shop. "Freeman, send out the woman, and we'll let you leave town alive." Elijah stood at the window with his rifle, Caroline beside him with the shotgun. "They mean it," she said quietly. "I know. If I go, we both die anyway. At least this way we die together." But they didn't die. As Bradley's mob prepared to rush the building, another group appeared, Wei and several Chinese workers all armed. Then came something even more unexpected. Big Mike Sullivan, the Irish mine foreman, with a dozen miners. "That's enough, Bradley," Big Mike called out. "Freeman's a good man, does good work, and his woman's got courage. Leave them be." "You're taking their side," Bradley was incredulous. "I'm taking the side of letting people live their lives. These two ain't hurting nobody." "It's unnatural." "So was slavery, but you didn't seem to mind that," Big Mike shot back. The standoff stretched taut. Then Sheriff Morrison appeared. "Everyone disperse. Now." "Bradley, you're under arrest for inciting a riot." "You can't arrest me for—" "I can and I will, unless you want to explain to Judge Harper why you're threatening tax-paying citizens." The mob dissolved grumbling. Bradley went with the sheriff, still clutching his burned shoulder. Big Mike approached Elijah and Carolyn. "You showed courage, both of you. That counts for something." "Why help us?" Elijah asked. "Because I came here from Ireland with nothing but my name. People said I wasn't white enough, wasn't good enough. Someone stood up for me once. Figure it's my turn." The confrontation marked a turning point. While not everyone accepted them enough, people were tired of Bradley's bullying that a fragile peace emerged. Elijah's business slowly recovered. Carolyn was allowed to shop at the general store, though Henderson served her with visible disgust. One day, a surprising customer appeared at the forge. Mrs. Harper, the judge's wife, a formidable woman who led Silver Ridge's small society. "Mrs. Freeman," she said, ignoring Elijah entirely, "I need to speak with you." Carolyn set down her ledger. "Yes." "You can read and write well, Arthur?" "Yes." "The school teacher left town, married a rancher. We need someone to teach the children until we can hire a replacement." "You want me to teach?" "Want is a strong word, but you're qualified and available." "The parents will object." "Some will, others won't. The Chinese children need education too, and the Irish, even some of the Mexican families. The proper families can object all they want, but their children can stay ignorant if they prefer." Caroline looked at Elijah, who nodded slightly. "I'll do it." "Good. You start Monday. The schoolhouse is behind the church." After she left, Caroline sat stunned. "She's giving me a chance." "She's using you," Elijah corrected. "But sometimes being useful is the first step to being accepted." The school was a challenge. First day, only 5 children showed, 3 Chinese, 2 Irish. But Caroline taught them as if she had a full classroom, pouring all her energy into lessons. By the second week, 2 Mexican children joined. By the month's end, even some of the poorer white families were sending their children. Bradley and his allies kept their children away, but Caroline didn't care. She had students eager to learn. One of them was Samuel, the son of Big Mike Sullivan. 10 years old with bright red hair and countless freckles, he was brilliant but undisciplined. Caroline saw herself in him, a bright mind trapped by circumstances. "Why do you care so much about teaching us?" Samuel asked one day after class. "Because education is freedom," Caroline replied. "Real freedom, not just of the body but of the mind. Pa says you were rich before, in the South." "I was." "Why give that up to marry Mr. Freeman?" Caroline considered her words carefully. "Because being rich in a wrong system makes you poor in spirit. And your Mr. Freeman is the richest man in spirit I've ever known." Samuel thought about this. "Pa says Mr. Freeman is the best blacksmith he's ever seen." "He is. And you love him even though, you know, because he's good and kind and patient, because he sees me as a person, not an ornament or property, because with him, I'm myself for the first time in my life." Word of her teaching spread. Parents saw their children learning, advancing. Even some who'd shunned her began nodding politely on the street. But Caroline's greatest challenge came from an unexpected source, a new arrival in town. Marcus Washington, a black man from Philadelphia, educated and articulate. He'd come to open a law practice, the first black lawyer in Nevada. He came to dinner at their invitation, and the evening started pleasantly. Then after several whiskeys, his true feelings emerged. "I don't understand it," he said to Elijah. "You could have had any black woman. Why marry the enemy?" "Caroline's not my enemy," Elijah said quietly. "Her people enslaved our people, her family specifically. And she spent every day since trying to make amends." "Amends?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "You think teaching a few children makes up for centuries of bondage?" "No," Carolyn interjected. "Nothing can make up for that, but doing nothing makes it worse. You want credit for basic decency. I want understanding that people can change, can choose to be better than they're raising. Easy for you to say. You still have white skin. You can walk away from this anytime. And go where back to the south that would stone me as a race traitor, to the north that sees me as a curiosity. I'm here because this is where I belong. With my husband. Marcus turned to Elijah. She's going to have your children, black children. You think she's ready for that? To see her babies treated like you've been treated? The question hung in the air. It was something Elijah and Caroline had avoided discussing. I'm terrified of it, Caroline admitted quietly, but I'm more terrified of living without love because of fear. Marcus left early and Elijah found Caroline crying in their bedroom. He's right, she sobbed. What right do I have? What can I offer children who'll face hatred from all sides? Elijah held her. You can offer them parents who chose love over convention, who'll teach them to be strong, educated, and proud, who'll show them that bridges can be built even across the deepest divides. Is that enough? It has to be. Winter came with unexpected news. Caroline was pregnant. The joy was mixed with fear knowing the challenge this child would face. But the pregnancy also brought unexpected support. Maylin organized the women, Chinese, Irish, Mexican, to help Caroline, us in. They brought food, sewed baby clothes, shared advice. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was community. Even Mrs. Harper visited bringing an expensive baby blanket. The child didn't choose its circumstances, she said simply. It deserves welcome. But not everyone felt that way. Bradley out of jail and bitter spread poisonous rumors. It's probably not even Freeman's baby. She's probably carrying some white man's bastard claiming it's his to save face. The words reached Elijah at the worst moment. Caroline was in labor and it was going badly. The midwife, one of the few who'd agreed to attend, looked worried. The baby's turned wrong, she said. This is beyond my skill. Get Doc Morrison, Elijah said. He won't come, not for this. Elijah grabbed his rifle and headed for the doctor's house. He kicked in the door, finding the doctor drunk as usual. My wife is dying. You're coming. I don't treat. Elijah cocked the rifle. You're coming or I'll paint your walls with your brains. Choose. The doctor came. For 6 hours, he worked Caroline screaming, Elijah holding her hand, both of them terrified. Then miraculously a cry. A baby girl, small but strong, with coffee-colored skin and her mother's gray eyes. She's beautiful, Caroline whispered, exhausted. She's perfect. Elijah agreed, tears streaming down his face. They named her Hope. The baby changed things in unexpected ways. People who could shun adults found it harder to hate an innocent child. When Caroline brought Hope to the store, even Henderson's wife cooed over her. When Elijah carried her through town, even harsh men softened at her smile. Not everyone. Bradley and his core supporters remained venomous. But the middle ground, the uncertain majority, began to shift. The turning point came during the summer festival, a traditional celebration with booths and games and dancing. Elijah and Caroline had never attended knowing they wouldn't be welcome. But this year, Big Mike Sullivan personally invited them. Bring the baby. Let people see you're just a family. They went, Caroline in her best dress, Elijah in his Sunday suit, Hope in a beautiful gown Maylin had made. At first, people stared and whispered. Then Samuel Sullivan ran up. Mrs. Freeman, you came. Can I hold Hope? Other children gathered, all Caroline's students, all wanting to see the baby. Their parents followed, drawn by their children's excitement. Then the fiddle started playing and Big Mike asked Caroline to dance. It was scandalous. A white man dancing with a black man's wife. But Big Mike didn't care. You've got courage, lass, he said as they waltzed. More than most. Other men asked Caroline to dance. Not many, but enough. And when the music turned to a reel, Elijah joined dancing with Maylin, while Way danced with Caroline, all of them laughing at the absurdity and joy of it. Bradley watched from the sidelines, his face dark with rage. That night, as they put Hope to bed, Caroline said, we're winning. Winning what? The right to exist, to be a family, to be part of something larger than ourselves. But Bradley wasn't done. He made one last desperate play, writing to Caroline's relatives in Charleston, telling them about her marriage, her child. A month later, Caroline's cousin arrived. James Whitaker, now head of the family, a man who'd rebuilt his fortune through questionable means. He came to the forge looking at Elijah with undisguised disgust. I've come for Caroline, he announced. I'm not going anywhere. Carolyn said, emerging from the house with Hope in her arms. James saw the baby and his face went white. My God, Caroline, what have you done? I've built a life, a good life. You've destroyed our family name, polluted our blood. I've freed our blood from the poison of hate. Come home. We'll say you were forced, that the baby died. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. I'm where I belong. With him, James gestured at Elijah like he was pointing at something contaminating. Yes, with my husband and my daughter's father, the best man I've ever known. You're choosing him over your own blood. I'm choosing love over blood. If blood means hate, then yes, I choose him. James left, but not before delivering a final threat. You're dead to the family. No inheritance, no help, nothing. I have everything I need, Caroline replied. As his carriage drove away, Elijah pulled Caroline close. No regrets. None, you. How could I regret the woman who chose to stand with me against the world? That evening, something remarkable happened. Mrs. Harper came to their door with several other women, including some who'd shunned them before. We saw what happened, Mrs. Harper said. What your cousin said. What you chose. She paused. It took courage. Real courage. We want you to know you're part of this town now, both of you, all three of you. It wasn't perfect acceptance, but it was enough. A beginning. 5 years later, Silver Ridge had changed, and so had the Freeman's place in it. Elijah's Forge had expanded into a proper business employing 2 apprentices, one Irish, one Mexican. Carolyn's school had become official with her as the permanent teacher. Hope ran between the forge and schoolhouse, loved by the children and tolerated by even the hardest hearts. Bradley had left town after a failed business venture, his hatred having consumed his judgment. The new sheriff was a fair man who treated all citizens equally. One evening as they sat on their porch watching Hope play, Caroline said, "We did it." Did what? Proved them wrong, proved that love is stronger than hate. Is it though there's still so much hatred in the world? Yes, but we carved out a space free from it. Here in this unlikely place we made something beautiful. You sound like you're saying goodbye. Caroline was quiet. She'd been sick lately, a cough that wouldn't go away. The doctor, a new one competent and unbiased, had been honest about her prospects. I'm saying thank you, she said, for choosing me, for seeing past everything that should have separated us. You chose me too. The best choice I ever made. Carolyn died that winter, the consumption quick once it truly took hold. The funeral was attended by the entire town. Even those who'd opposed their marriage came to pay respects to a woman who'd earned their grudging admiration. Elijah stood at her grave, Hope's hand in his, surrounded by the community they'd built through courage and persistence. Your mama was the bravest person I ever knew, he told Hope. Braver than you, Papa. Much braver. I just did what I had to do to survive. She chose to do right when wrong would have been easier. Years later, Hope would become the first mixed-race woman to graduate from the new Nevada State College. She would become a doctor, returning to Silver Ridge to serve all people regardless of race. She would marry a man who loved her for her brilliant mind and compassionate heart, not despite her heritage, but because of the strength it represented. And she would tell her children the story of their grandparents, a black blacksmith and a white Southern belle who defied an entire society's expectations to forge something new and strong and enduring, like iron in the fire shaped by pressure, but ultimately unbreakable. The forge still stands in Silver Ridge, now a historical monument. A plaque reads, Elijah and Caroline Freeman. They built more than horseshoes and tools here. They built a future where love matters more than color. And in the cemetery, their graves sit side by side, the inscription chosen by Hope. They chose each other against all odds. Charles, in that choosing, they changed a town, challenged a nation, and proved that courage is just love that refuses to surrender.